Share the agenda. Do you need us to share the agenda, Haley, or?
You know, I've got it right here in my email. I just got to get her grabbed.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, guys. I apologize for that. I had a little baby who decided it was no longer nap time. Oh, all right. So we went ahead and we got our meeting called to order. And do we have any public comment today? And if I can, as we do public comment, if you could state your name, where you're from, and this is your time to comment on matters that are falling within the purview of the Tourism Advisory Council. And there's also going to be an opportunity for public comment with each agenda item as well today, which of course looks like we've just got that single agenda item. Any public comments, you can go ahead and do the digital hand raise. All right, looks like it is fairly quiet. So we'll go ahead and go to our agenda item for today, and that is the fiscal year 25 University Travel Research Program Project Review and Discussion. So Melissa, I'll turn it over to you for that.
Thanks, Haley. Good morning. Thanks everyone for being here and in the research committee. This is very exciting. We have a big list of projects. And I have explained in the email kind of how this process works, but this is my second year doing it. We put a call out for projects every late summer. We get a variety. We got a little over 40 in. We have already met once to kind of narrow those down, and ITRR also reviews those to see what is research, what we've done in the past, what's kind of appropriate within our skill set. And so these were the projects that we decided. I mentioned in the email that we scope them out of what we think stakeholders want. I've also probably put in some clever titles that are negotiable. But as different projects move forward that we vote on, we do have research listening sessions and a lot more input. So those titles or scopes could change if people needed those too. So we're very excited about the lineup. And in the past, we have followed Robert's rules, where someone puts a motion on the floor in seconds to vote for the research project proposals. And then at that point, we will open up and can walk through each of them and have discussions if that works for people.
Madam Chair, this is Mike. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Melissa, in the past, we've also had a budgetary attachment or a thought on the fiscal impact of each one of these proposed studies. Do you have any of that information available?
I don't know that I've ever seen that, a fiscal impact.
If you look back at what we did last year, Melissa, you had a proposed potential spend for each one of these so that we could judge what it would cost to potentially do this versus another as we're making priorities. Do you remember doing that?
Oh, the whole yes. Did you not receive that email last week?
Well, that's entirely possible I did. I just don't have it in front of me.
We created spends for each project. And when you asked that, I thought it was in addition to that, Mike. So apologies. I can resend that if you need it though.
Well, what I think would be helpful is if it was on the screen for.
And I can share that right now. I have it pulled up.
We have a new TAC member with us who is ice cold to all of this. So in the context of the discussion, it would be nice to see what it is that we're talking about.
Alex, if you can enable me to share the screen, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Can everyone see that? And then I have it so my screen shares 2 at a time. So,
Yeah, we can see both of them, Melissa.
okay, let me make it a little bigger. That might help. It's hard to scroll, so help me know when you need movement. So I think if that works, Mike, then we probably just need a motion.
So as Mike kind of alluded to, this is my first time. This is Saber. I would move to accept the proposals as presented.
And we need a second.
Mike seconds.
Thank you. And then I'm happy to open it up for discussion now and kind of walk through the different projects. You can see that our quarterly non-resident travel and recreation analysis, which are surveyors across the state that intercept visitors and residents, has about a little less than half our budget. You can see that that's a pretty big part of our research program. The things I'm doing now, like going out on the economic outlooks, presenting that data, collecting it, running it. We have our data dashboards, our data mining. This year, I have emerging issues with much less money in it. That was a category in case something unique came up, and that actually the dean of the College of Forestry can approve. There are 7 projects here, which is pretty big. So I would be hesitant to take on an emerging issue project with our current staff. We have the survey kits in here. Those have been very popular this year as events have come back. Megan, I forget how many we've had, but it's been quite a bit. And so you may know that when we work with communities on this, Saber knows we send tablets to communities. And so we want to make sure that program has money for it because I think it's very valuable. We have the resident attitudes, and of course, the data visualization is a big component of where people can go find all the data. And then how I budget out fiscal year projects and the way it's been done in the past is we kind of put all the money towards our, what I would consider our ongoing research. And then for the fiscal year, we look at % of time and how much we think each social scientist and person will spend on a different project. I feel like these are in line. If we were to hire a consultant, they're probably a little low. You all know, especially at Commerce, consultants charge a lot of money to run projects. So, you know, this has high value for our state. We do have carryover. That is from lapsed salaries. We work on other projects with other consulting firms and that money comes in. It's nice to have a little bit of that carryover for projects. For example, the stargazing project, we sent it out to our panel, but we are going to spend some extra money buying a panel from a firm and kind of getting more data so we can oversample. That's sometimes what we use that money for, or different other things that come up. With that said, I'm going to scroll down to the projects so we can discuss those and kind of answer any questions that you might have. And you can interrupt and ask me questions anytime. So investigating the socioeconomic footprint of Montana's paleontological tourism. And this is looking at our different, I would call it dinosaurs, looking at all of this and considering the statewide trail. I think this is similar to kind of the stargazing. It has a lot of opportunity and economic impacts. What you see in the introduction and kind of the purpose is the way we have gone and just done a literature review and looked to see what is out there, what other museums are doing. And you can see that this one and the other museum one after this is similar. Brenda, you have a question.
Yes, I just want to say that I think this is an important project because this is one of our first destination development projects, and it dates back to 2005. I would really encourage you to connect with Victor. Can't remember Victor's last name. Who
I have spoke to him a few months ago, I think.
This group has done a really good job of having annual information of number of visitors at each location, the percentage of increases, all of those sort of things. So I think that there's some valuable data that can be incorporated into this project. And I think the other reason I really like it is it's, like back to 2005. So this really shows some data I suspect that we will need for some of the rural communities, because the biggest one is Bozeman, but everything other than that is, I don't know, what's the biggest one? Haber, maybe. So it's super important. That's just my thought process.
Thank you, Brenda. That has been the consensus and what I've heard from a lot of people. And thinking about investment in Eastern Montana, this is already an amazing resource. And so kind of measuring that, I think will be critical. We're real excited. And again, kind of what I put down is the research questions. Those will be scoped out more when we talk to all the partners and understand what they need to know.
Haley, or sorry, not Haley. Melissa, this is Saber. I just had one more comment on this one. It's a really important thing to do for the industry as well. We've got lots of our partners, especially the Bureau of Land Management and the National Forest Service, that really want answers to these questions. Not just the dinosaur trail, but also the museum one, which you'll be talking about next. So I echo a lot of what Brenda said, and of course, Carter County Museum and the rest of the trail looks forward to helping on this project. Thank
you, Saber. And I did meet with the BLM. Is he the paleontologist? Is that right? Yeah, he was great. So we have already had some preliminary meetings and are working on pulling some data for them, just of stuff we already have. But yeah, I have been already learning a lot about this because, yeah, it's still new to me. So this is exciting. I think we can do a variety of different things. Just to let you know on the side, we'll have a few new graduate students and we have an intern. We often hire undergrads, especially freshmen and sophomores, and they work for us and go do surveys and then they love it. And so they're able to stay. And we were thinking this would also be a great opportunity for some of our students to travel the state, go to the museums, there can be a lot of opportunity here. And that goes with the next project, which is the contributions and impacts of Montana museums. You can see I pulled a whole list of options. I kind of went down the rabbit hole just looking at how museums are measuring themselves. There's some really interesting data out there, Saber, I'm sure you know, but looking at wellness and how they're part of the community and they tell stories. And so I think we have a lot of options in how we want to look at this. And I will need your help in understanding what is a museum, there seems to be a wide variety of things. And I know, Alicia, you shared a lot of support for this as well,
Yeah, and I think too that when you start reaching out to some of the partners, we can share some statistics too. Like I've got some from the American Museum Association that gives I think it was the last time they did it, a 2018 economic impact of museums in the state of Montana, but it's not been updated. So I think too, once you reach out, we can share some of the information we all have access to as part of our industry associations.
That's exciting. Yeah. As a
Melissa, this is
go
Saber
ahead.
again. Sorry.
No, you're good. No.
I just wanted to mention before I forgot the measurement of museum social impact study. Carter County Museum participated in that in 2022. Our report was given in 2023, so I'll share that with you. But more notably, we are working with several other museums in the state to conduct a MOMSI study in their communities right this year. And we'll have all that data in December, but I'm working with the Montana Dinosaur Center in Bynum, the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum, and the O'Fallon Historical Museum in Baker, and then also Blaine County Museum in Chinook. So there's about 4 people working on that right now. And I hope to expand it in the future, but I'll be sure to share that impact with you as well.
That's awesome, Saber. Something we're working towards. We hired a communications director, Rachel Schaus, who's on this call, is having on our website spaces for some of these TAC projects, and then all of the reports that kind of go with that and the presentations versus just going to the publication. So I want to offer to you, if you have some of these reports that you've done that you would like to host to be publicly available, we're happy to do that too. So people can kind of see what's going on. I was really surprised by that social impact. I just didn't know. So I think it would be exciting to share your results too.
Beautiful. We'll take you up on that.
Yeah. So this project has come up the past 2 years I've been here during my tenure, and I've heard it's come up other times. It does appear that I hear some resistance in terms of reporting the numbers to people, and it looked like, and Megan or Kara may have institutional knowledge, they have tried to do the study before and it failed because people didn't report information. We may be in a different space now, and people may want to share more. I know I just left Great Falls, and we stayed at the Heritage Inn, if I'm right. I can't remember, but they have that space that's dedicated to this, and we're having an I think they have conferences all the time. We're very open to do this. We'll probably need to really rely on partners to help us to get buy-in and collect the information. But when you collect numbers and financial information, people are always hesitant to report it. So there's that caveat.
Melissa, this is Saber again. Sorry, I swear I won't comment on all of these, but
You are welcome to. I love it.
okay. The Miles City just opened a new convention center, and I think they would be really interested in contributing to this study, especially because it was built partially with USDA community facility grant funds. So.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that would be great. And Mike, you may have other, connections to ensure that this study has like credibility, that people in the hotel and lodging business want to participate in it, and thinking about those connections.
Yes, and I'm more than happy to help. I do think, Melissa, just as your team starts to think about this, you're going to have some of the same challenges, many of the same challenges with people and their proprietary information and sales numbers, and even their own, what they consider to be secrets about how they attract and maintain a meeting business in their property. So I would ask you to be thinking about a different approach. The approaches that you've used that have failed, if you don't come at this differently, it will fail again.
I think that's well said, Mike. And we might work on how to ask questions that aren't just sales related, but more how many attendees, how often do you book, where do people come, like maybe we can do more general things. Knowing though that when we release the report, it might be hard to predict or have some of that economic data if we don't know the numbers. But we can understand maybe the size of it and maybe what the average person spent. We could extrapolate some things. I don't know.
And I don't want you to not try to get the numbers. I just think we need to approach it differently. And we could even partner with the Lodging Association to potentially get people to be aware of the value this report could be to them if they actually participated in a robust way. So I think we can do it. We just have to partner up and do it differently.
Thank you, Mike. That would be great. Brandon, did you have a question?
I just had a comment. I work at Visit Helena, the Tourism Business Improvement District, and I work with a lot of the meeting planners for our region. And I actually survey out our hotels each week to find out what we're doing as far as occupancy from meetings and conventions that do happen in our community. So I'm happy to touch base with you on the insight that I receive. So any conventions that come to Helena that are spread across all of our hotels, we get that feedback. And this is due to our Tourism Business Improvement District grant that we offer on a biannual basis. So it is attached to that, but then we try to survey more broadly to create more of an economic scale for what's going on in the community.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We will definitely reach out.
Okay.
Brenda,
Yes. Oh, am I on? Hang on a second. Oh,
you're
I
on.
am. I agree. I think the TBIDs have a lot of data, but I would also add, I think one of the big, and I don't want to speak for the CBBs and the TBIDs, but I think, especially when you're thinking about the bigger ones, there's a lot of missed opportunities across Montana because of capacity of facilities. I know that even bringing the governor's conference to Billings, for example, that was actually spread across 2 different facilities. And it's not just Billings that has that issue. I think that a lot of communities, the bigger cities, do have that. And so we are missing opportunities. And when there's, need for funding, and, Billings has done a lot of different things to try to get different convention facilities, this data is really valuable. And I agree with Mike going about it a different way. I love the lodging association idea too.
Thanks, Brenda. I think that can be critical questions to ask. I just know I don't plan the BBER. I call it Bieber. Don't tell Pat. The Bieber tour. It sounds more like a rock show. It makes me feel more important than I am. But we have a hard time, like at Great Falls. We had it in the country club, which was beautiful. There's nothing better than like a ladies' restroom in the country club. But it's not a great like speaking venue, and it's hard to find any place that can, have that many people. So, and then, we go to Bozeman, we go to that church, the Commons, because there's no other place to have that many people. So I think that's well stated. That's something we can include. And just thinking about what Saber said, there's all kinds of interesting places to get funding to build that infrastructure. So yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'm excited for this project to be a success. I was a little surprised to find that article that was like, this project failed. You don't see that too much. The outfitting and guiding, this came up. It looks like kind of like our agritourism this year. It's a timely project. It hasn't been done in a while. It'll be interesting to see post-COVID how this works. Many of you know that our colleagues in the College of Forestry just put out the wolf report and some grizzly bear reports. So I think, there's some really interesting implications with this too, of understanding those businesses and permits and some of our warm waters and what's happening. So this, again, like our agritourism one, this would just be updated, and we can look at that. Our last one was in 2017 for that one, and we did one in 2006. So the Flathead Lake water levels, not surprisingly, this showed up. This project gives me pause, which I had shared in the fall meeting. I was cautious to to survey just like homeowners or folks, but to look more at the businesses and to understand some of those impacts, and to also understand what happens when there are future decisions over water levels. Because I have met with our director of the climate office, who is also in our college, and they are working on a project right now too with DNRC and FWP and the tribe. They knew the water levels were going to be low. They predicted all of this was going to happen. They did not get the communication out. And so they're thinking about ways to do that. But in addition, he talked to me about ways that we can overlay the economic impacts of what this looks like as different water levels happen. And I think that's really exciting to all work together on this. Based on the snowpack this year, I think there's some pretty serious concerns. Flathead will be, even worse. Diane is not on this call. She has talked to us about this project. The low lake levels impacted big boat owners and of course property owners. A lot of the other folks just were displaced to other places on the lake to guide or run trips or do things. So kind of understanding that dynamic. I am sensitive that this is a very political issue. We are a bipartisan research institute, so we'll navigate this in a very sensitive manner. But I think places like Flathead, maybe Canyon Ferry, there'll be some tough decisions to make in the future when you have a water resource that works for drinking water, fish, farming, and recreation. This is going to be tough. Questions? Mike, you're off mute.
Yes, just a couple comments. I think this is an awful big net. So your idea of focusing it a little bit more on the business and the aspect that this lake level had on business, that may be enough of a reduction of scope, but it's still a pretty big net. There are a number of people interested in the impact of water, and there's a bunch of groups and private and public groups that are working to save the lake and save our water, and all those organizations. I'm going to send you some of the contacts of those people so you could begin to understand what their concerns are. And as you listen to what they're talking about, and they represent Kalispell, Polson, Big Fork, the whole aspect of the lake, there might be some ways to learn a little bit more of how to narrow the questions and to decide what the scope is, but also to get some help in making sure you get a robust study out of this. So if you're okay with that, I'll forward those groups to you that are working on lake levels at Flathead.
That would be amazing, Mike. And thank you for what you said. I agree. Narrowing the scope and being very purposeful. Some of you know we're working with the Cook City Park County Plow the Plug project, and the politics are challenging. And so I want to be very sensitive when we go into these projects, and very purposeful. So the next project was also an idea that Diane has had from Kalispell and shared a few different times. Thinking about, I don't know if disengagement is the right word, but kind of non-visitors, visitors that come that don't come back, or people that don't come to Montana for whatever their perceptions are. Diane has asked us, what are those? Why don't people come to Montana? And so this would be kind of a unique sample in that we would have to hire people to find people for us to interview and do this. Destination Analytics has done something like this before. We would do it. We would just find a panel of folks who've either visited once, haven't come back, or people who've never visited Montana to kind of get their impression or why they might not come. I have anecdotal things. I think some people just aren't outdoorsy. They're outsidesy, I don't know, and have different impressions of Montana. Maybe that's just not their jam. But I think this will be a short study, but one that has a little unique methods. The next study, we were talking on our team, thinking about like understanding reservoir recreation. This specifically came up with Canyon Ferry. There is a very engaged volunteer group there. I'm sure Mike is aware. I don't know if some of the others of you are aware. And I did not know that there had been another study done until we did, kind of started researching around. But Canyon Ferry has grown in popularity. It is run by the Bureau of Reclamation. This is new for me. I have never worked with them. I met with their director, and I mean this with love. I don't think they acknowledge recreation much. I don't think they're a well-funded agency. And so it appears there's some crowding on the lake. It appears that some of the camping and things that go on might be not managed well. These are some of the perceptions that I have gotten from talking to folks. And so this group of volunteers is very interested in understanding some of these changes and what's happening so they can try to get more money. I don't know that the Bureau of Reclamation is going to get more money for visitor management in the federal budget. I think they just kind of wait and see what they get, and they don't manage that lake for recreation. And so this will probably be a heavy load. This will require some people to be surveying and at the lake and doing things. So yeah, pretty interesting. We had also talked at ITRR that the nice thing about this survey is that when we called it like reservoir recreation, we could create a survey that other reservoirs and waters can use across the state, since we have more of those. I guess Canyon Ferry has also become popular with RVers because it's between Bozeman and Kalispell, and they kind of go around and pop off. And so I think the demographics are also changing. So those are our list of projects.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Any questions specifically for Melissa on these?
Haley, I have two things for you. I ran this meeting last year to cover for Alicia, and it was my first time. So I'll try to throw you some of the things we did last year that may or may not be of interest to you. One of the things we did is we, as a TAC, with the help of everybody on the call, prioritize these. So we put them in a priority list in the event that budgets or activities or other things changed the thought process of ITRR. What would we want to make sure fell to the top of the list versus the bottom of the list? So we can throw that out for discussion. And then we also talked about the overall budget. So I'll throw out, Haley, if you're okay with it, Melissa, you're going to spend $67,000 more on this budget than you have. So in my words, you're digging into your reserves. Are you comfortable with that? Or would you like this committee to trim the list to get you within budget?
I'm okay with that. We always have lap salaries or different things that kind of build up what I would call that kitty. So I'm okay with that. My concern is capacity. I mean, most research projects take 6 to 8 months to fully do and complete and report. And while we are having some more support come on, capacity is my only real concern. But I think we can manage that with the project budget. So I appreciate that question. I'm okay this year for this budget. I will tell you the following year, I think it'll be a strong budget, but after that, we may start to see our budgets go down. Kara's run some of the initial numbers. It's probably a little softer. We're probably down maybe 10 or 15% this year. Not surprising with maybe a softer season. So I don't know that I will be comfortable with this many projects next year, Mike, but I'm okay this year.
Great.
And I would love to prioritize these. I think that would be great.
Great. So Melissa, as we do that, do we have a list of just maybe project titles so that we can see them all in one spot at the same time?
Yeah, does what I have on the screen work for you? It's kind of the budget, but I can highlight this. Oh, good grief. I did this so we could see more and then, yeah.
Gorgeous. That's exactly what I was looking for. So well, I guess I'll just speak out first as a TAC member. The ones that definitely interested me right off the start to give kind of my vote for priority. The paleontological type studies always interest me, as well as the impact of meetings and conventions. Those were two that were definitely high on the list for me.
This is Saber. I would advocate, of course, for beyond fossils, beyond artifacts, so the paleontology and the museums, and then also the conventions. Probably in that order in my top three.
Alicia or Mike, any thoughts that you have?
Sure, I'll throw out my thoughts. I'm going to reverse the thinking, and I will say that the two that fall to the bottom for me are the lowest one would be the disengagement, and then the next lowest one for me would be the outfitting. I would like to have the water ones somewhere in our priority list, but to me, the value in getting both of those water ones done is to get them both done, so that we can learn about the use and abuse of our natural water systems and lakes, and this together could be very informative.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. The disengagement one does not do as much for me as some of the others.
I am technically ex officio on this, but I am happy to echo both Saber and Mike's. I think that if I was to drop a couple off or make them less important, I would echo the same importance of what Mike just said, but also go with Saber's top ones as well. So if we were looking to reorganize your A through G, with that. Matt, feel free to speak up if you feel comfortable doing that. And I know we have Joan on as well, who you might not be prepared to speak, but if you would like to speak up before we open it up to the DMOs and other participants.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to chime in a little bit. I definitely agree with the impacts of the Montana meetings and conventions, as well as the kind of paleontological and museums section. Obviously, it's a huge part of a segment of the tourism in Montana. I actually am a little interested in the disengagement side of things, and why visitation is a sort of a one time, but it's more of a curiosity. I don't know how much it would actually impact our work on the TAC, or so while if we're looking to cut, that one would be one I could understand looking to cut, but I do think that would inform us on sort of travel behaviors and understand the potentially economic impact of what's happening sort of more nationwide, as opposed to anything that we're doing. I know travel costs have gone up, lodging costs have gone up, things like that. So I have a feeling it would just more reinforce a gut feeling than necessarily tell us anything completely new. But that's it.
Great, thank you for that. And Joan did mention in comments that she's liking all of the information, but has no comments at this time. All right, with those words from the TAC members, does anybody in the group at large have any comments they'd like to add?
This is Brenda. I'm wondering if FWP is doing anything similar or interested in doing any sort of collaboration on the outfitting industry. I'm not a fan of spending other people's budgets, but I would also think it's really important to check with them because it is a huge economic driver, as we all know. And then it's, you know, I think drilling down to the different it's not species, but fish versus big game versus upland birds, that's the categories would also be important. I know from some of the data that on big game and birds, the number 2 states that come to Montana to hunt are Washington, excuse me, Washington State and Minnesota. So they do have some data. So there might be something we can glean from that or maybe find a partner.
Thank you, Brenda. I think those are really good points. I think we're working really hard to partner and listen. So FWP, outfitting, all the associations, thinking through those connections. Absolutely.
Brad and I'm in Big Sky. I had a couple questions or comments, and I apologize I jumped on 20 minutes late. But in regards to the meetings and conventions, I think that's a great topic. The thing that I'm wondering if there's any latitude in your design of that study is just actually measuring the lack of meeting space as well. We're finding in our office, we get RFPs for meetings, and on average, you know, I'm throwing over 100 of them away because we don't have anything. And I find across the state, we have a huge shortage of meeting space for larger groups. So that was my first comment. The second one is the disengagement and influence of our visitor. I think in Big Sky, we watch that a lot. We track that with cell phone tracking data, and specifically that we're seeing that our visitor that comes to Big Sky over the course of like 3 years, we only see about 50% of those returning. And so we see a huge void in returning visitors. So we've had to identify that a little more. We watched it over COVID. We realized that for us being a ski destination, it's actually people that have icon passes. They were using us as a bucket list. They checked the bucket, and the next time they went skiing at another resort. I think we have the same scenario happening with our national parks. People do a Yellowstone venture, they do a glacier, and then they check the box and they don't come back to Montana ever again. And I just think this is something that it would be wise to look at long term. This is something that will affect us for 20, 30 years. So it would be neat to get out in front of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Brad. We did bring up lack of meeting space. So I think that will definitely be part of that. I think that's a real challenge in communities and how much business we might turn away. It could be a real opportunity for growth. And I appreciate what you said about, I hadn't really thought about it. I also went to Big Sky and checked it off my bucket list. So yeah, I could see that happening a lot.
We just completed a feasibility study on convention space in Big Sky. So getting professional guidance on how much square footage we need and how many hotel rooms we need to accommodate the demand. And then they went actually out and interviewed 100 different meeting coordinators and found out that Big Sky is a destination, and it was very high. So it's motivating some big capital projects for us in the coming years. So I think there's a desire for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the reason we also came to Big Sky, you all have a cardiac convention. One of my friends is a doctor, or it's emergency medicine. Yeah. And he doesn't do emergency medicine, but he still comes to it. So we stayed with him.
Yep, that's going on right now. So
thanks. Robin?
Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to tack on a couple comments on what has been brought up about the meeting and convention space, because on yesterday's meeting, we heard Daryl talk about that he has recently, or we heard Brianna talk about that she and Daryl had recently met with the Gallatin County Fairgrounds to talk about how innovative partnership to possibly create meeting and convention space. You know, there's so many new hotel properties coming on in Bozeman in the next few years. And it all tied into, I was at an event last night and a number of marketing and sales directors from several of the properties were at that event. And I had a lengthy conversation with the Armory, the Kimpton Armory here. And they are partnering between properties to try to bid on conventions. And then try to share like ballroom space and other things and do like breakout sessions. And so a lot of creative thinking going behind that, but that lack of meeting and convention space, I think, is a challenge for us. So I think it's an important study.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
All right. Any other comments, thoughts from anyone on these different research avenues that we're looking at with Melissa? All right. Well, Alicia, Mike, I'll kind of ask of you, what else do we need out of this meeting? Should we do a better alignment of those priorities for Melissa? What should I be doing as chair?
Hi, it's Alicia. I think you're doing an excellent job. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Melissa. I guess kind of Melissa, you answered my questions because it's pretty typical that we at this point would have to be, as we're in our discussion, like withdraw a couple of them because one, the demand wasn't there from the council, or two, the money isn't there, right? And I guess that's when we throw it back to you, Melissa, and your team going, do you have the capacity to take on all of these, or do we need to pull one or two out?
Yeah, I'm okay keeping these on here. I appreciate prioritizing them. That is very helpful. And I think what you all spoke about is probably what we as a team thought too. Some of the projects are, we can narrow the scope down, the ones that have lower priority, and we can find that capacity. So I'm okay with this if we want to vote on all of them. It's very exciting. As a researcher, I'm always like, this is great. And then I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, but it's good.
And then two, because this committee is really discussing it and then bringing it as to vote on bringing it to the full council at the February virtual meeting. So at that meeting too, the council will have time to discuss it. So if between now and then, Melissa, you and your team have heartburn about anything, this can't move forward until the full council votes at the February meeting. But so that is an opportunity too for this Haley to bring it forward, to have full council discussion, you kind of to do this like what you just did, but also then you can bring it to the council prioritized from this discussion, and then we can talk if we need to take one away or something like that.
That's helpful. I can rework this a little bit and put them in that priority. Yeah, I can take care of that.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, Alicia, for jumping in there. All right. Well, I guess with no more discussion from the room, is there anyone that wants to move to bring these different research projects to the February full TAC meeting?
Is it still my motion?
Oh, do we have one on the floor? Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Perfect.
Me and then Mike seconded. So
great. Okay. So we've just been in discussion.
Just quickly, will you restate your original motion just to make sure that we have it? And if any amendments are made to it?
This is Saber Moore. I move to present the research projects as presented and prioritized to the TAC full meeting next in February.
Great, thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and do our vote now. All in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? Motion passes. Been a really long time since I've had to do Robert's Rules of Order, so you guys are just gonna have to reteach me.
You did great. I used to have to do them in faculty senate meetings, which are very contentious, and so it kind of gives me some PTSD when I think about it.
Melissa, we appreciate your time so much for going through all of this, and just the sheer workforce aspect of asking all these questions of all the people gives me anxiety up the wazoo. So I'm very grateful for people like you that can do this for us.
Well, it's my privilege and it's very exciting, and I think it's important research, and I love the critical discussion and the questions. That's what we're here for.
All right. Well, I think that's everything that we have on our agenda. So we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Just a quick question. We just want to confirm all the votes. So we have Matt, Mike, Alicia, Haley, and Saber all voting aye.
I don't vote. So
Alicia did-
so as ex officio, I'm not voting.
Okay, it's just hard to catch everybody because we can't see the whole screen. So we have Haley, Mike, Matt, and Saber.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Have a great week, everyone. I'll see some of you next week on the road. So yeah, take care.
See ya.
Thank you.
And then Mike seconded it.